What's up, everybody? It's your boy Evan. I'm coming to you with a video about something that's been bothering me for a very long time. Ever since this case came up, I have maintained that I believe that Tory Lanez is innocent. He did not shoot Meg the Stallion. The evidence that was provided at the time with the court case seemed overwhelming to me that at the very minimum, Tory Lanez did not fire the gun at Meg. Does the evidence show who did? Not necessarily. But I felt there was overwhelming evidence that Tory did not shoot Meg. And now I'm starting to feel vindicated because some new evidence has come out and it's really rattled some feathers. So much so that I think a hit was put out on Tory in prison. He was stabbed 14 times, 16 times, one of the two. Both his lungs collapsed. This was a clear hit. This wasn't just an altercation. This wasn't just prison violence. This was a targeted attack on Tory Lanez. So before we get into any further, I'm going to go ahead and play this press conference that was held in regards to this new evidence about Tory Lanez being innocent. We're going to go through it. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I'm going to play some of the beginning that I felt was very impactful. I haven't watched the whole thing yet, so some of this I will be experiencing real time with you. But without further ado, let's begin.
All right, welcome back in here to Live and Now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack. Let's turn our attention to new developments involving Tory Lanez after a stabbing at a California prison. We do know the alleged attacker. More information.
I was really hyped. I was really excited to watch this, and then he said California. I'm like, bruh.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Let me try to lock in again.
Information here, this courtesy of TMZ, saying the guy who allegedly attacked and stabbed Tory Lanez in prison is serving a life sentence for a murder charge, and this wasn't his first violent incident behind bars. The alleged attacker was identified by authorities as 42-year-old Santino Casio. Prison officials say he's serving a life sentence for second-degree murder and was previously convicted for an in-prison assault with a deadly weapon. So we're following the latest here on Live Now from Fox, and we're also learning more information about new evidence being brought forward in this case involving Tory Lanez. We watched it here on Thursday or on Wednesday as the legal team sought justice in the case of Tory Lanez. They presented new evidence that suggests he never fired the weapon the night Megan the Stallion was shot in the Hollywood Hills. Lanez is currently serving a 10-year sentence for the shooting. The legal team alleges she lied about what happened the night she was lost. So let's take you right now out to some of these details here on Live Now from Fox from Los Angeles earlier on today about this new evidence being presented. We'll see if it has any legs in the courts. Let's listen into this here on Live Now.
Here, some really compelling new evidence that you've never heard before. Our legal team will explain all of that to you. We will have updates on Tory Lanez, Mr. Peterson, on how he's doing. It's really sad to see the situation that he's in, and we think it's time. Enough is enough. It's time to bring the brother home. So with that, I would like to bring up our lead consultant, Mr. Walter Roberts.
Good morning. We are here today to bring to your attention some information Unite the People believes is exculpatory in Mr. Daystar Peterson's case, professionally known as Tory Lanez. Recently, we've been made aware that a member of the media, Mr. Gianno Caldwell, was working on an op-ed for the New York Post regarding Mr. Peterson's innocence. During his work on that op-ed, he became aware of some information in Unite the People's possession regarding a statement that was given to Unite the People by someone with information relevant to that case. The New York Post recently reached out to the prior district attorney, George Gascon, Megan Pete and her representatives, and Kelsey Harris and her representatives. The only party that responded last week was Megan Pete's representatives with a request for more information. A few days later, Mr. Peterson's brutally attacked in his jail cell.
Bro, They find this new evidence. They know it's going to make a huge difference. They notify all parties as they're supposed to. And what happens a few days after? Tory gets attacked. Damn near killed. Hit put on him. Now, obviously, I don't have any proof that this was a hit. Do coincidences exist? Yeah. Was I born yesterday? No. Come on, bro. It's like, you really think that this new evidence is going to come out and Tory just happens to get brutally attacked? Not a fight, not a quick stab. This is a double-digit stabbing. Both his lungs collapse. Left for dead. Hangs on by a thread. Yeah.
Unite the People represents Daystar Peterson in his appellate process. We filed an appellate brief and a writ of habeas corpus on his behalf. The district attorney's office has already responded. The case is fully briefed. We're just waiting for the appellate court's decision. We were willing to wait for the appellate process to play out. But given that brutal, unprovoked attack, we felt it necessary to come here today to provide you with this information. It is our intention to make a request to the governor to either pardon or commute the sentence of Mr. Peterson, so that when he recovers from this attack, he's not returned to a jail cell, but that he's allowed to go home and recover.
You know, I complain about Newsom a lot, right? He has destroyed the state in many which ways. But this is an opportunity for Governor Newsom to do something right. Tory Lanez was wronged by our legal system. In the day and age of modern forensics, so many anomalies that they're going to mention in this video happening, highly improbable to just happen by mistake. I refuse to believe that happened by mistake.
Not long ago, Unite the People was approached by a gentleman named Bradley James. Mr. James informed us he was working as the bodyguard and driver for Miss Kelsey Harris during Mr. Peterson's trial. As such, he was in close proximity and he had privy to conversations she was having with her husband and others. Mr. James informed us he was not under a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement and was free to speak with Unite the People, and that he was doing it because his conscience would not let him not speak and leave a man in prison for something he did not do. Mr. James informed Unite the People that he was witness to the conversation Miss Harris had, where she stated she had the gun, she fired it 3 times, Mr. Peterson grabbed her arm and knocked it down, and the gun fired 2 more times. In essence, Mr. Peterson never shot anybody, never even touched that gun, never fired the gun. This statement aligns with the statement of the only non-party witness to the case, Mr. Sean Kelly, who at trial testified he saw 2 women fighting, 2 men break up the fight, 1 man grabbed the other one's arm. Gunshots came from the passenger side. The passenger side is where Miss Harris was sitting.
The one testimony that was impartial to the party corroborates the evidence that they had on hand. Not only that, at a bare minimum, it exonerates Tory Lanez. It was physically impossible for him to have shot Meg the Stallion from where he was sitting in the car. And the only people that say otherwise are people that are incentivized to lie and have Tory take the sentence. This whole altercation is because allegedly Tory Lanez and Kelsey Harris were having an affair. Kelsey Harris being Meg the Stallion's best friend, and they got into an altercation over it. It was physically impossible for Tory Lanez to have shot that weapon. You know what isn't impossible? For Meg the Stallion to make up with her best friend after this altercation, and for them to decide collectively, yeah, what I did wasn't right, but you should be really mad at your man. For them to team up and have this case thrown onto Tory in defense of her best friend after having relations with her boyfriend, bro.
This further iterates that Mr. Peterson did not shoot Miss Pete, did not shoot at Miss Pete, or did not assault Miss Pete. It's just another irregularity in a list of irregularities in this case. For example, there were 3 potential suspects in the car that night, and yet the only DNA sample was taken of Mr. Peterson, even though unknown DNA was found on the gun. Why wasn't Miss Harris's DNA taken? Or was it taken and the information simply never given to the defense? Why wasn't the driver of the car, Mr. Jaquan Smith's DNA taken? Or was it taken and again, simply not given to the defense? We don't know. It should have been taken. It is Unite the People's understanding, regular LAPD practice at a crime scene like that, anybody who's there, the DNA is taken. Another irregularity. Why, at Miss Harris's police interview, was a non-lawyer, non-family member record company executive allowed to participate? Highly irregular situation. Normally, we see cases, strangers are not allowed in these things, but it was in this case. All of these things point to the highly irregular nature of his trial and his conviction. It is our contention that he was wrongly convicted. And while we at first were willing to let the process play out, it is our contention now that if he is not pardoned or released promptly, he may never come out. And that would be the ultimate injustice, is that he gets killed in prison for something he did not do.
Ding, 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 ding. I'm telling you, man. Right now, he is being watched over by God. God pulled him out of that cell and put him into a hospital bed to save his life. But now, it's in our hands. If Tory Lanez goes back to prison after he recovers, after he's put into a stable condition, he's going back to a death sentence. He's not going to make it out. There are forces cooperating with the interests of Meg Thee Stallion to see this man dead. I'm gonna just say it like that.
At this time, I'd like to bring up Mr. Gianno Caldwell, the media member who was working on that op-ed for the New York Post. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Good morning. Thank you for coming today. My name is Gianno Caldwell. That is spelled Gianno, Caldwell, Caldwell. I am the founder of the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety at caldwellinstitute.org. I am also a member of the press for almost a decade now. I've been looking into Daystar Peterson's case for almost 6 months now, professionally known as Tory Lanez. And after reviewing the evidence, the reporting, and the legal analysis, I've come to the conclusion that Tory Lanez was railroaded by the former district attorney, George Gascon. He was also wrongly convicted. I believe if Jesus Christ was Tory Lanez's attorney, George Gascon would do whatever in his power to ensure that Tory Lanez lost that case. Tory Lanez's defense team have alleged the withholding of exculpatory evidence, prosecutorial misconduct, among other issues that I was compelled to write an opinion piece for the New York Post. It is true that last week, the New York Post editors reached out to 3 parties, one being George Gascon, Meg and Pete's team, and Kelsey Harris. It is also true that Megan's team was the only ones that responded back for that request for comment.
Responded in more than one way, by the way. They responded by letter, and they also responded by a letter opener. Stop fucking playing with me, dog.
I had some glaring questions, and that was the reason for this op-ed. Things didn't make any sense to me, many issues in this case, and I was shocked by the lack of interest from the media to ask very simple questions. There were multiple people with gunshot residue on their hands that night. Why didn't all individuals have the residue tested, their DNA tested on the weapon? That's a legitimate question. According to the prosecution, Tory was excluded from the clip of the gun, and according to Tory's defense team, They said DNA analysis showed that there was a 0.01% chance that Tory touched the actual gun itself.
Bro, I'm telling you, man, these people got me fucked up, pissed off, because what they'll tell you is, oh, well, the DNA evidence was inconclusive, right? They make it sound like it might be his and it might not be his. 0.01%. If they went out and said it was a 0.01%, oh, no. Way different story now. But the thing is, they had to get the public on Megan's side. They had to make this another story about domestic violence and black women victimization. They had to stack the deck against Tory. He lost in the court of public opinion before he even stepped foot into that trial.
Another piece that stood out to me, the call that the prosecution alleged Tory made confessing to a crime. I listened to that call. I'm sure many of you have as well. I didn't hear a confession. But what really shocked me about it is if my best friend was shot maliciously by someone just 2 to 3 hours before, I wouldn't have answered the call, or if I did, I wouldn't calmly have a conversation with the individual of it. And certainly I would ask, why did you shoot my friend? And more importantly, I would never have given you my current location out of fear of you finishing the job. That was something that stood out to me.
Right? You're going to have Kelsey on the phone with Tory. You're going to answer the phone after you just shot your best friend, right? You're fearful. You're so fearful for your life that you answered the phone. So fearful for your life that you gave him your location. Yeah, absolutely not, brother.
I also, in my op-ed, discussed Kelsey Harris pleading the Fifth Amendment. She wasn't accused of anything by Meg and Pete or the police, and to my knowledge, she wasn't under any investigation. So why plead the Fifth? What also shocked me is the prosecution gave her immunity. For what?
So this is where things get a little conspiracy. Meg Thee Stallion is very well liked in LA. She's very well liked in general as a musician, as a celebrity. You're telling me she don't have connections into the police? You're telling me the record label doesn't have access to the police in some regard? Absolutely not. They gave Harris immunity. You have one testimony that completely exonerates Tory Lanez. So in response, what does the prosecution do? Well, we got to narrow the box. We got to make it so if somehow the truth gets out, our person isn't cooked. They gave her immunity. She pled the Fifth because any version of the reality of what happened immediately makes her guilty. Immediately makes her guilty at the bare minimum of fraud. Yeah, I totally believe that Kelsey Harris did it. The police and Meg are covering for her. And a hit was put out by either Meg Thee Stallion's label or by the PD, who wanted to sweep this under the rug because of their own wrongdoing in the case. End the case in the worst way possible.
What did she do? Is there an allegation of her doing something? I'm not aware of that. Maybe some of you can answer that question today. During the time of trial, George Gascon, just to take you back to where we were at that particular point, he had just barely won a recall attempt. He lost support in many key demographics of voters. Crime was up in Los Angeles County. And this case would have been a silver bullet for him potentially winning. His policies obviously were bad and people were harmed. So that didn't happen, and thank God it didn't happen. At the heart of this injustice is the misuse of gun enhancement charges, a sentencing tool intended for the most dangerous and violent offenders. In Tory Lanez's case, these enhancements were not supported by evidence. But George Gascon, interestingly enough, who is someone who regularly would drop enhancements or not recommend them, chose to provide enhancements to Tory. And in his case, In any given situation, according to legal analysts I've spoken with, he would do 1 or 3 years if he did it without the enhancement. That's interesting. Why did George Gascon choose to pursue these enhancements? You know, there's cases I've been looking through which George Gascon has pursued, many in which he utilized these enhancements. A couple come to mind that I would like to reference here. One, Raymond Danger Gonzalez, a Mexican mafia gang member involved in a premeditated murder of 2 young men in 2017. Despite the brutality of the crime, Gascon didn't recommend enhancements. You premeditated murdered a teenager and another individual, brutal crime. Why would you recommend enhancements, but you would recommend them for Tory? That doesn't make a lot of sense. He also didn't pursue sentencing enhancements for the senseless murder of General Hospital actor Johnny Victor in Los Angeles in 2024. There's a lot of issues with this case.
I just want y'all to think about this, right? You had a premeditated murder from a Mexican mafia gangster, killed a 14-year-old. No enhancements. Actor senselessly killed. No enhancements. Tory Lanez, with no prior violent offenses, shoots, allegedly. Well, they say it's not allegedly. I say it's allegedly because I know for a fact he didn't fucking do it. But Tory Lanez shoots Meg the Stallion. She doesn't die. She doesn't even like lose a toe. Bro, like, she more or less leaves unscathed. Gun enhancements? Double-digit years? Are you fucking kidding me, dog? Stop playing with me, bro. This is 100% an emotionally backed, scornful attack at Tory by Meg the Stallion or people that work on behalf of Meg the Stallion.
I think that the media should be pursuing all angles of it. We should not allow there to be unanswered questions. We should pursue open questions without fear or favor to anyone. That includes Mr. Tory Lanez.
That's where I'm gonna go ahead and end it, guys. This is a 46-minute video. Would love to keep you here with me as my prisoners and up my watch hours, but I'm not gonna do that to you. I'm gonna leave it right here. So you got to hear what his legal team had to provide. I've known from the jump Tory is innocent, so until he's free, okay, maybe not until he's free. So you know what, for the rest of the month, I'm just listening to Tory. I'm not listening to anyone else. I gotta change all my playlists right after this. Free Tory till it's backwards. So if you like this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend. Don't have to share if you don't want to, but I would really appreciate if you like, comment, and subscribe. It would mean the world to me, and I'll be sure to put out more interesting stuff that I find. So yeah, Free Tory till it's backwards. I'm out.